Hello, is everybody ready?
Yeah.
How great to see you. Some people that we've seen before and some new people. That is wonderful. So shall we just do a big hello to everybody? We'll welcome the new people and say a big group hello. So just take yourself off mute for a minute. And after 3, 1, 2, 3. Hello, 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 welcome everybody.
Hello, new people.
How nice to see you all. So here we are, we're in Gloucestershire Archives. We're saying hello to you from there. And what are we going to do today? What are we going to be talking about? So we're going to learn a little bit about children's lives in the past. Now, obviously, that is a huge subject. And we've only got an hour together, and we want to spend a lot of that time hearing from you. So it's just going to be a little snapshot of some children's lives from the past. We're going to think about what children's lives are like today, how in some ways they're similar to what children's lives were like in the past, and in how in some ways they're very different. We're going to hear about that from you. We're going to hear from an archivist here. Rihanna is going to tell us about what happens when people bring in material for us to look after. So documents and things that we store here, how we look after them and what we do to make sure that we know how to find them. And you are going to have your voices heard. Elliot, that looks delicious. What have you got there?
A biscuit.
You lucky thing. Right, so here we go. What was life for children? What was life like for children in the past? So we've got some pictures, we've got some documents from the archives. We're just going to have a little look. So this first one, here we are. Who's got a bike? Anybody here got a bike? Does anyone cycle to school? Okay, George. Are you George or Jacob?
George.
You're George. Anybody else cycle to school? Put your hand up or give us a shout out. Well, this is called a slow bicycle race. And when I was at school, we used to do this on our school sports day. So the idea is to go as slowly as possible on your bike. If you put your foot down, then you're out of the race. So you had to go as slowly as possible without falling off or putting your foot down. Next one. So here's an interesting one, 1960. Now, how old would somebody be who was born in 1960? Quick bit of mental maths here. Who's good at maths? Go on, George.
61.
61, pretty good. So I'm a couple of years older than that. I was born in 1962. So plenty of people who were born in the 1960s are still going to be alive today and in their sort of 50s and 60s. So here's an interesting photograph, and it shows a teacher and some boys who are fishing for bottles of cider. So it's like a fairground kind of game with a fishing rod and a string, and they've got to try and pick up the bottles of cider. Do you think that's the kind of thing that would happen at a school fete now? Anybody? Probably not. Why not? Can you think why we might not have an event like that at a school fete now? Should we come back to that? Oh, go on, George.
Because you're not allowed to drink alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. Children aren't supposed to drink alcohol. We wouldn't have alcohol at a children's event, would we? Elliot, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, but I was just going to say the same thing.
The same thing. Okay. So we probably wouldn't have alcohol. Anything else that you can think of? I was thinking it looks as if it could be broken glass if somebody drops one of the bottles. So these days we're very, very keen on protecting children and making sure that they don't, trying to protect them from risks, which in many ways is a very good thing, what adults need to do for children. But does it mean that sometimes children are missing out on things that are fun? That's something that we can think about in a minute. So here's the next slide. Obviously, this is going further back in time. And this, you can see the date on this. It's 1939, which you might know. Some of you might know that 1939 is an important year in world history. Anybody know what happened? That was the start of? Go on, Jacob.
The world.
Say again.
The World War.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well done. So this is World War II. So World War II was starting, and these children, can you see, some of them are really small, some of them are just maybe 4 or 5 years old, and they've been evacuated from where they live in Birmingham. And evacuated means that they've been moved out, and they've taken a long train journey, and they come to a place in the countryside, a much quieter place, in this case Stroud in Gloucestershire, and they stay with a family that they've never met. They leave their own families behind. They don't know when they're going to see them again. Sometimes, can you see, they've got all their stuff just in carrier bags. So it was a very, very traumatic thing for some children. My mum and dad were both evacuated in the Second World War. They grew up in London, in the East End of London, which was very heavily bombed. And my mum went to a family in the countryside, and she loved it because it was the first time she'd ever seen farm animals. And she had much better food with the family in the countryside than she had at her home. But my dad had a horrible time because he had a family who didn't like him and didn't take very good care of him. So it really depended on which kind of family you went to. But just imagine being such a little child and being sent away from home.
Oh, we have a question for you, Kate. One of the people watching would like to know why it was that they had to move out of Birmingham. Why couldn't they stay in Birmingham?
Oh, a very, very good question. And I wonder if anybody here has got any thoughts about that. Elia, what do you reckon?
Well, they're usually like bombs and stuff, and they're quite dangerous for children to be nearby.
Fantastic. So big cities like London and Birmingham and other big cities were places where the German bombers would try and drop bombs. So it was very unsafe to be there. So lots of families thought, well, I want to protect my children. I don't want my children to be here in this situation where they might get bombed. So we're going to send them away to places in the countryside where they'll be a lot safer. Really good question. Thank you. Okay, next one. So this one is... look at that. So this is Frisky the rabbit, who's gone to church to a special blessing service. Anybody here got pets? George, what have you got?
A mouse and a dog.
What's your mouse called?
Mega Mouse.
How about your dog?
Dolly.
Say again, Billy?
Dolly.
Dolly. Are you brothers?
No.
Friends?
Yeah.
Okay. Elliot, what pet have you got?
I used to have two, but one passed away. But I had two cats. One was called Mars, which was the one that went, and the second one is called Ginger. I think she's outside. She's only got 3 legs and no tail.
Oh, has she?
Got into a fight with an animal.
So, how do you say your name? Is it Ganuli?
Yeah.
You say it for me so I can say it properly.
Ganuli.
Ganuli. Do you have any pets in your family?
No, but I had a pet fish when I was a baby, but it died.
Do you remember him?
No.
Okay, let's have a look at the next thing. Oh, now this is one that I'm interested in. So can you see what these boys have been doing? Go on, Jacob.
Are they making an igloo?
Yeah, they've made an igloo. So they've made a great big snow structure that's big enough for them to climb inside. Now, have any of you ever been in a very snowy winter? Has there ever been enough snow since you've been alive to build an igloo, do you think? Yeah, you reckon? Because one of the things that I think is different is that the climate is changing. We know that, don't we? That we've got a climate change. And I don't think there's as much snow around as there was when I was a child. But I might be wrong about that. Did you want to say something, George?
No.
Oh, okay. So we've got a fancy dress costume competition here. Do children still do dressing up and stuff like that? Like we used to...
Little bit.
Have you ever been dressed up and gone to a party or anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
In my school, we have like a Halloween dress.
That's a very good example. So now that's a really good example, actually, Jacob, because have you ever been trick-or-treating?
Yeah.
You do that because when I was a child, and probably even when people who are much younger than me were children, trick-or-treating didn't happen in the UK. That was an American thing. But people do get dressed up, don't they, to go trick-or-treating. Very good example, thank you. Now we're getting to something a little bit more serious now. So this is a school logbook from a school in the Forest of Dean, that's near where I live. And this is about a pupil who was very badly behaved. So I don't know if you can read that, it's quite difficult for me, but a pupil called Robert Evans, and the teacher says, he has been giving much trouble for some time. On being asked to hold his hand to the cane for insolence, he tried to kick me and ran out. He came to school this morning, but was sent home till the managers are consulted. So we've got this little boy at school who's misbehaving. The teacher told him to hold his hand out for the cane, but he didn't. He tried to kick the teacher instead. So if this was your teacher, what do you think they might do? First of all, they wouldn't be allowed to cane you, would they? They're corporal punishment, so being able to punish children in physical ways by hitting them or caning them was banned in the UK, I think in the late 1970s, but I'd need to check on that. So teachers are not allowed to physically punish you. But what else might they try and do with somebody who was misbehaving?
They could give you extra homework.
They could do different kinds of punishment. Elia?
My school, we have a zone board where there's gold, silver, green, and orange, red. Red is really bad. Orange is when you're bad. Green is okay. Silver's really good, and gold's like super good. They'd probably move you down the zone board.
The light's gone off here. So you'd move down. So that is a way of trying to encourage you, isn't it? So instead of punishing you, the school is trying to encourage you to do well so that you get a good place on the board. And what I was thinking of, and Gemma here, Gemma and I both used to be teachers. And when we were teachers, if a child came to school and was being very naughty and disruptive, we would try and find out why. We'd try and think, well, what's happening in this child's life at home that might be making this happen? But that didn't happen in the past. Children who were naughty just got punished, and that was it. Nobody tried to understand why. So now this slide, I think when I saw this, I was very shocked by it, and I think you might be shocked by it, and I'd be very interested to hear what you think. So this is something that used to happen to children that would never happen now. And as you can see, this little boy, Edgar Kilminster, who was 7, and he was sentenced to a week's hard labour and the birch for stealing sweets. Does anyone know what hard labour is? Have you heard of that? Go on, Jacob.
Is it like a prison? Or like...
That's a really good guess. It is a little bit like that. Anybody else want to have a go? Hard labour means that he would have to do very, very hard work that was physically hard, like lifting rocks or something like that. So a little boy like that had to do a week of very hard work that was difficult for such a small child. And what about the birch? Do people know what that is? Go on, Jacob.
I was going to say, I know what you mean by lifting the rocks. Do you mean like going in the mines? Like,
it could have been something like that. I think it probably would be something that they could just do in quite a short space of time, because children did go down the mines. You're absolutely right about that, and they very often they worked down there for many years. This would probably been something that they could do, like helping to build a road or something like that. But yeah, very good guess there. So what about the birch? Do people know what the birch is? Have you heard of that? So the birch is like the cane. So it would be used to beat a child, probably on the back or on the bottom. And this next one is even more sad, I think. Sarah Jordan. Oh, so go on, Jacob. Sorry.
And as well, what they used to do is they used to get like a sort of belt and say to put your hand in, and they would pull it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And even when I was at school, that was still happening. People used to get the belt. It was called the strap, and you get the strap on your bottom or on your hand. It was very painful. So this girl, who's an older child, obviously, she's 14, and she was convicted of stealing soup. And what she did was she went into a place where you could buy soup, and she ordered it and she ate it, but she didn't have enough money to pay for it. So she was imprisoned for a month. So why do you think she went in and ordered soup and she didn't have enough money to pay for it? Shall we have a Ganuli, what do you think? Any ideas?
Because she might have been like really hungry, but she had like no money, so she just wanted to go and get some.
That's what I think it was. Yeah. Do you agree, Elia and Jacob?
I think she might have been homeless or poor.
She could have been, couldn't she? She could have been poor. She didn't have enough money to pay for the soup, but she was really hungry. So, and for that, she was imprisoned for a month. Elia, did you want to say something?
Yes, I thought that maybe she thought that she had some money left, but then when she ate it and then went home, she didn't have any.
That's another possibility. Who was that who just popped up there earlier? Is that your brother?
Yeah, that was my brother.
So a little bit about rights, because children have rights. And you know, children didn't always have rights. Children having rights is quite a recent thing. Up until quite recently, children were considered to be the property of their parents. So your parents would, as well as being your parents, they would own you, and you didn't have any rights of your own. And of course that has changed, and now children quite rightly have rights. One of their rights is to be respected. Another one of their rights is to have their voices heard. So that's why we're particularly interested in hearing from you today. And your contributions are fabulous, by the way. Thank you all. So next one, let's have a look at this. Oh, so this is another thing that is unbelievably used to happen to children, that they would be deported to Australia. Has anybody heard about people being deported in the past, in the 19th century?
I don't know what it means. I know what deported means, but I don't know what happened.
Children and grown-ups who were convicted of crimes were put into ships and sent by ship to Australia. And Australia wasn't a beautiful holiday country then. It was a very barren place, and it was called a penal colony. Now, the person who knows a lot more about this than me is Gemma. So Gemma, I wonder if you could just say a little bit more about that, because I think this is interesting.
Can you hear me all right?
Can everyone hear Gemma?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, yes, so really interestingly, like Kate said, Australia didn't used to be this lovely place to go and visit on holiday. Australia used to be basically like a big prison. So children and adults were sent on boats. It would take, you know, weeks sometimes to go all the way to Australia. And when they got there, they would be made to be like slaves, like servants, and they would be somewhere where they couldn't escape. Quite often they put them on really horrible islands where people were really, really unhappy, and they had to live there for years and years. And then when they were finally released, they didn't pay for them to go back to their home country. They actually, unless they had the money, they had to stay where they were. And that's why quite a lot of Australians today actually can date their ancestors back to people who were sent over there for crimes. And those were crimes, it wasn't things like murder, it was often, you know, really petty crimes like stealing or things like that, that today, you know, they're not great, but, you know, today we wouldn't expect such harsh punishments for.
Thank you, Gemma. Now, this is one that brings back memories from when I was a little girl, and in every park there used to be a great big paddling pool like this, and we all used to get our swimming cozies on, and we used to go and play in the park, in the paddling pool in the park. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a paddling pool like this in a park in recent years. Have you? Anybody seen one? that you can just go in? Anybody got any thoughts about why? Why don't we see paddling pools like this anymore? Just have a think about it. So Jacob, what do you reckon?
I reckon because because we've got like, because I bet we didn't have back then, I bet we couldn't have like paddling pools back at home.
Oh yeah, well that's true. Lots of children have paddling pools in their gardens now, don't they? Which they didn't have. That's a very good point. Elia?
Coronavirus.
Oh, another very good point, which I hadn't thought of. Yeah, well, of course, something like that would be a very
mix bubbles and like get sick.
Yeah, a really good point. I mean, I think it's because, you know, of what I was saying earlier about protecting children from risk. So a little child could fall over and drown in a paddling pool like that, couldn't they? Or there could be glass in the bottom of it, which children couldn't see. So because we're trying to protect children so much, sometimes I worry a little bit that we're stopping you having as much fun as you should have. So we've just got a couple more here, which are school photos. And here's one from 1973. And this one I like because this is the building that the archives is in. It used to be a school. It used to be called King's Home School. And it's now the building that the archives is in. And this is the senior class, so the oldest class in 1973. Not wearing school uniform, interestingly. Much earlier, so this would be around the start of the First World War, 1914, and this is a school near Cirencester. You can see there are boys and girls in the class. Sometimes girls, as you know, if you came to our session on schools, girls didn't always get the same education as boys, but this is a good school where they're educating boys and girls. And finally, an even earlier one. So this is a school near Stroud, and this is this might be the whole school. All the children would be taught together in the same class, from the littlest to the biggest. So nappies, that's what I want to talk about now. Anybody have a guess about when disposable nappies were invented? Just have a guess. Doesn't matter if you're wrong. Go on, Ganuli, just have a guess.
1904.
A good guess. Actually, wait, what? Oh, go on then, Jacob.
1905.
Disposable nappies weren't invented until the 1950s, and they didn't become popular until the 1970s and 80s. What do you think happened to all that wee and poo before there were disposable nappies? I mean, this is a serious question. What do you reckon, Jacob?
I don't know.
Anybody have any thoughts about that earlier?
It might have been like transported like clean water and then turned it all mucky and dirty.
Well, babies used to wear cloth nappies. They were made of something that was a bit like a towel. So just imagine you've got a massive towel around you and it's pinned with great big safety pins to hold it in place. And the parents or carers of the children used to have to shake out all the poo, rinse out all the wee, wash them properly, hang them on the line. So disposable nappies solved a big problem, didn't they? They made lives of parents and carers easier. But what was the unforeseen consequence? What was the thing that nobody thought about when disposable nappies were invented that we're dealing with now? And you children will be very aware of this, I should think. To do with landfill. Is that what you were going to say, George?
Yeah, about the environment.
Yeah, exactly. So a big environmental problem, because, you know, disposable nappies are one of the biggest difficult things to get rid of. Okay, so next stage, I'm going to introduce you now to my lovely colleague here, Rihanna, and Rihanna's job is an archivist. So an archives, you need archivists to keep it all working. And Rihanna's going to tell you all what happens when somebody brings in or sends in something for us to keep and look after at the archives. Here she is.
Hello everyone, so my name is Rihanna, as Kate said, and I am an archivist here at Gloucestershire Archives. Gloucestershire Archives, as you possibly already know, keeps the record for the counties of Gloucestershire and South Gloucestershire, and we collect a wider range of things, including both digital and on paper, so letters, diaries, drawings, maps or photographs. We don't collect objects, however, because that is done by museums, and an estimate of how much stuff we currently have would be around 12 million, so a lot of items here at Gloucestershire Archives. So my job is to catalogue and manage and care for these items so that they're available for people to look at now to help with their research, or for people to look at in 100 years so they're still available and can be accessed. So we're always on the lookout for new material, especially from unheard voices such as children, which the task that you're going to be doing in a second will relate to that. And so yes, so today I'm just going to talk you through the process of what we do when we take items into the archives. So the first step in the process is for us to make, for the person who wants to bring some material in, to make an appointment with us. And this just ensures that there's someone who's going to be available to meet them at the archive, and that they don't waste their journey bringing in their documents and there's no one here for them. Then step two is for them to come at that appointment time and meet the archivist and hand over the documents. So this could be big boxes of stuff, just a small amount of papers. And then we have to do the maybe not so fun thing, filling in the paperwork. This is very important though, because it tells us about the history of the items and who owned it, or what kind of information is inside them. And then step four is stuff that kind of happens behind the scenes. So it's where myself, an archivist, or someone else here at the Gloucestershire Archives, we add the record to the catalogue. So this means that it's on our online catalogue, so that researchers or anyone who's interested in the stuff we hold can find it, and they know what we have. And this is very important because a lot of people do research on all different things, including like local history, family history. Some people have old cars that they want to learn about, or maybe they're doing like just a project for school, or even writing a book. And so the next step is to repackage the documents. When, especially the older documents, when they come to us, they're often in kind of old packaging that's really kind of damaging to the papers that's inside them. So it's important for us to put them in special folders that protect them and add a label so we know what's inside. And this just means that in 100 years, someone can still read it and know, get all the information out of it. And then the final step would be to put them away in our strong rooms. So we have 14 strong rooms, and they are these big rooms with thick walls that help kind of us to control the temperature, which helps protect the items inside. And it's really important that at this stage that we record where individual files go, and so we know exactly where to find everything, because as you can probably imagine, in 14 big rooms, it's quite difficult, can be quite difficult to find things if we don't keep a record of where they are. So I'm going to pass you back over to Kate, who's going to kind of talk you through the activity for today's session.
Thank you, Rihanna. So would you believe we've got 12 miles, I think it is, of shelves here, 12 miles of shelves, 12 million documents. And the archivists have to keep a track on them, know where they are, know what we've got, so that anybody who wants to come and see them can find them. So we're telling you all this because we want you to send us in some work or bring us in some work. So it could be a story that you've written. We've had some ideas about what you might like to do. And one idea is a letter to a child in the future, telling them about your life today. So you might think, well, my life is very boring. Nobody's going to want to read about that. All I do is go to school and have cornflakes for breakfast. But Can you imagine a child in 100 years' time might never have heard of cornflakes? Maybe children don't go to school in 100 years' time. So it'll be very interesting for them to look back and see, well, gosh, this is what children were doing in Gloucestershire in 2021. And our other idea was to get you thinking creatively. What invention could you think of that might improve the lives of children? Maybe children like you, maybe children in another country. Now, children are brilliant inventors. Did you know that children invented the trampoline? A child invented the trampoline. A child invented earmuffs. A child invented ice lollies. And a child invented Braille. Does anyone heard of Braille? Do you know what Braille is? George, I wonder if you do. Have you heard of Braille? Do you know what that is? How about you, Elia? No, okay, well, Braille, it was a brilliant invention. Just imagine that you have got a visual impairment, maybe you were born or perhaps you lost your sight, and so you can't read anything. And this boy called George Braille invented a kind of writing that you can read with your fingertips. So it's made up of raised little bumps. And when you run your fingertips over, the raised little bumps form different shapes which translate into words, into writing. So it was a fantastically complex invention. Children have invented brilliant things through the years. Most recently, there's been a boy on YouTube who invented a pump to pump water in his village. What have we here? Ah, fantastic. That is absolutely brilliant. So I can't tell if that's George or Jacob who's holding that up. Was that Jacob? So that bottle of medicine, could you see those little dots on there? I know I wonder if you could hold it up again. Can you see those little raised dots? So that is Braille. So a person who couldn't see but had learnt to read Braille would be able to run their fingertips over those dots and they would know what it said. So what a fantastic invention, still in use today. Go on, Elia.
Sometimes on the road paths, like you find like little bumps on like these like red and orange things, and I think like blind people use that for like knowing where they are.
Exactly, yeah. So that's a sort of an invention which perhaps came out of the invention of Braille. So those were our ideas, an invention or a letter to a child in the future telling them about your life. And we thought we'd just give you a few minutes now. Obviously, that's not going to be enough time to finish anything, but maybe get something started, get some ideas forming, and then hopefully you'll be able to share them with us. So should we say 3 minutes? And then hopefully, we're hoping that you'll have something to show us and then finish it and send it in to us after the session. Okay, 1 more minute. So just jot something down if you can. Okay, let's count down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Has anybody got anything to show? I know you didn't have much time. Oh, well done, lads. Well done, George and Jacob. Anybody else? Even if it's just to start, Ganuli or Elia, let's see what you've got. Shall we start off with George and Jacob? Have you got this done something together or separately? Oh, take yourselves off mute. That's it. Smash it.
We've discussed it, but we haven't wrote it down.
That's all right. Well, you can just tell us your idea if you don't mind. We promise not to nick it.
Holograms like virtual reality
And robots.
To do particular jobs or just in general?
To do phone calls if you can't get up to do them.
Oh, that's a very good idea. Tell me a bit more about this holograms as well, because that sounds interesting.
They're in some movies, but it's like say an iPad, but it comes out of the screen. A little bit like if you ever go to the movies and you put like these glasses on,
Oh,
and
I
it comes out. A little bit like that, but without anything.
Fantastic. So do you think you'll be able to develop this idea and send it in to us to have in our collections? If you get the chance, that would be fantastic. Ganuli, shall we have you next? Have you got anything done?
I'm still at the start and I'm still writing.
Would you mind reading out what you've put already, or is it not ready yet?
It's not ready yet.
Okay, thank you for making a start. Elia.
I drew a invention for people who can't walk. And it says at the bottom, if you can read it, it says for people who can't walk, instead of a wheelchair so that their arms don't get tired. So
That
it's
is
just
fantastic. How does it work?
So you press a button. I didn't get time to draw it. So you press a button, and then like it operates, and it like picks up the person, and then it takes them to wherever it wants them to go, because there's going to be a speaker that it talks into.
That is brilliant. So this is a fantastic idea. I mean, my initial idea is I wonder if it would be painful to be picked up by your head, but I imagine you've thought of that.
No, because it has, you can't really see it, but like it has a cushion.
Oh, fantastic. You've thought
So
of
it
everything.
doesn't hurt their head.
Amazing. As I said, children's brains are fantastic. Have we got anything else? Gemma, did we have anything in the chat?
Yes, we have.
Kate. From iPhone, I don't know what your name is, iPhone, but what they have suggested is to use virtual reality for vets and doctors to use. iPhone, were you thinking in people's appointments? Was that what you were thinking?
I thought it might be to practice on. Was it?
I see what you mean.
Well, it's
yes.
fantastic. Yeah, that's a really good idea, so that an animal or a person doesn't have to accidentally be harmed by somebody who's still learning the skills. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, well, we're coming to the end of the session. I think Gemma's going to talk to you about what we're doing next. Does anybody have anything they want to say before we begin to think about saying goodbye? Okay, here comes Gemma.
There you go. Now jump on the back, quickly. Oh, you need him.
Hi everybody. So first of all, thank you for these brilliant ideas. Absolutely superb. What you can do next, well, first of all, if you haven't had chance, you can obviously go onto the website and download, or your parents can perhaps, the Passport to the Past resources. And like I said, there's some special ones for today, but there's always plenty of other activities as well you can have a go at. But most of all, what we'd really love you to do is to finish off what you've been doing today and actually send them in to us. And what that means is that we can add them to that 12 million items that we have. And it means that in the future, when children or adults want to learn about what it was like to be a child in 2021, they will be able to look at what you did. So when Rihanna was talking to you about how you can do this, she was saying about how you could, your parents or guardians could arrange to come in and meet us, and we could take your work in that way. But there's also another way which we think might be a little bit easier for some of you, because a lot of you aren't local to us. We know some of you are much further away. So what you can actually do is get your parent or guardian to use the link that you can see on the page at the moment, and that takes you to a form, and all your parent or guardian would need to do is just to quickly fill that out. It would only take a couple of minutes, and add either a photograph or a scan of what you've done to that form, and then it comes into us and we can add it to our collections. That would be amazing. So if you have a pen, maybe you could jot that down right now, but just to say, we are going to send you out an email in the next couple of days as well, just to remind your parents and guardians that if you have work you'd like to give to us, that you can do it in that way, and we will also include the link as well, so that you can do that nice and easily. Is that okay with everybody? Fantastic. Okay. So moving on to that, I just want to very quickly tell you about next month's activity. So next month's activity is going to be stories from the big house. And what it's going to be is a storytelling event. So we're going to be hearing some different stories from some different people about people in the past living in a great big house, like a big stately home. And you're going to be hearing about what their lives were like. And there's also going to be an opportunity for you to also create your own story within that. In fact, we're going to try and do a group story together. So it's going to be nice and interactive as well. So that is going to take place in a month's time. It's going to be on Wednesday, the 7th of July. And as always, it will be 4 till 5. And we really hope that you can help us. Well, we hope that as well, that you can join us. Okay. Finally, what I wanted just to do is really just to say one great big goodbye to each other. Thank you so much to all of you for attending today, and for all your general brilliance. Kate's going to get in there as well. So if you'd like to unmute yourselves, and we'll just do a big goodbye on a count of 3.
Can you see Rihanna there?
Which way am I going? Like that. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Okay, stop.
Bye, Auntie Gemma.
How's your